Day trading real talk. Why does the market move? I want to talk about this idea that the market is constantly moving both up and down to not only get to a level, but also to build liquidity for a move lower or for a move higher. The market is constantly creating these little fake out areas where we think it's a reversal. We get long, the market then moves lower, we get stopped out, it creates liquidity, and the market then moves lower. So we're going to take a look at the chart today, not really talking about these individual moves, but just talking about the market in general, how it's moving up, how it's moving down, and all of that fun stuff right here in this video. So make sure you stay tuned. Now, I've already talked about the idea the market is constantly creating these traps, these areas to basically sucker in either a long, to sucker in a short, to create liquidity, right? The market's moving from level to level, but the market can simply not just go up or go down. It needs liquidity, it needs buyers, it needs sellers. So if the market is moving towards a level and we start to get a reversal, we start to push back up, and then it ends up breaking lower, well, that little area where we reverse, that little area where we consolidate, normally that's basically just creating more liquidity for the move lower. So like this is a perfect example. This morning, actually, we had this big move overnight, about actually 4 o'clock till about 9 o'clock there. We started bouncing here at this pivot point, this orange line right there. Let's just get rid of the Lux Algo for now. It's a little confusing. Let's just talk about these levels with the pivot points or the VWAP. So we basically bounce here. You know, the market made that big move down, and what happens? We get stuck here. But the thing is, like, we can't go lower. Like, we're not going lower yet. Like, we need to go higher before we go lower, right? That's a weird concept, but it is just kind of how the market has to move. You need basically liquidity. You need somebody to sell. You need more sellers than buyers for the market to move lower. When it's sitting here at this level before a market open, there's more buyers willing to buy at this low than there are sellers willing to sell. Remember, buyers want to buy low, sellers want to sell high. There's a reason that we kind of battled, and then look at this drop. Obviously, the numbers came out, but still, it gives you a pretty good idea of how this basically is all built up. All these buyers start coming back in here. You get buyers buying. Now you got sellers trying to sell here. Well, guess what? They get squeezed. You got more buyers. And guess what? At this point, the buyers who bought here, they're selling at this pivot point, right? It just makes sense. If I get long for this breakout right here, where am I getting out of the trade? I'm probably getting out of the trade up here at this pivot point into this level here from earlier, that previous area of resistance. I would also say the NASDAQ loves to basically bounce off previous areas of resistance, support, things like that, especially the ES, the NASDAQ in general. So it's not a coincidence that we pushed right up into this level from earlier. That's where we were bouncing at, and then it turned into resistance. So we get this big move up. This is the 3-minute chart, and then guess what? Whoop. We go right back down, which is very interesting too, because if you look smaller time frames here, look at how this kind of just like traps, right? It's like a little bull flag. One more time, we get this wick on this candle, and then it's red. The numbers came out there at 10 o'clock, and then the dump happens. So again, we talked about this idea right here. This is on the 1-minute chart. We are kind of going red. We're down to this level, and it's like, do I really want to get short after we just went from 910 down here to this 820 level? Probably not. What do I want to look for? I want to look for a little bit of a push back up to create some liquidity to then move lower, right? So think about it. If you shorted here, it's pushing back up. Well, guess what? You've got your stops probably like in this level. You know, your take profit, you're like, okay, I'm going to get out if it starts to reverse. So people will start getting out right here. It creates this buying pressure. We get this spike up, and well, guess what? The sellers start to come back in there, because remember, sellers don't want to sell down here. They want to sell up into this range. So that way we then move lower from there. We had that target here of that pivot point, and guess what happens? We ended up hitting that pivot point to the downside. So we got tapped right there, stuck at that 860 pivot. We talked about this all happening live on YouTube, by the way, 9:15 a.m. We're live every single morning. But look at this. We push back up in there. We trap those buyers that try to buy the bottom here. Well, guess what? They're going to start getting out, and then we're going to have that selling pressure. We've got sellers coming in. We've got buyers who try to buy the reverse Now they're getting out as well. We're adding on selling pressure. We break through that level, we move lower. And then this was a really good type of thing to look at here. This was a really good type of setup right here to look at for the trap, right? Guess what? We start to consolidate off this level, right? We're basically trapping. We trap some buyers down. We trapped some shorts who bought this breakdown, and then we trapped some buyers up here that try to buy this breakout. So we got traps both ways. And well, guess what happens? This thing pops up here. Buyers are like, okay, we're breaking out. And guess what? We then sell. So people that bought down here, well, they're selling here at this resistance. Now they're dumping, and then we're working our way down. The market is simply not just gonna, I mean, it does sometimes go just straight down, but in general, the market's gonna kind of move to levels. It's gonna flag, it's gonna consolidate, and then it's gonna move down to that next level. We talked about this on the live stream, kind of this chop zone, and then this idea of moving down to that pivot point. I really do love these pivots. You can see why, because look, today we hit this pivot up here, we reverse. We hit this pivot here, we then broke through, we turned it into resistance, we then moved down to this pivot. I mean, these pivots love to bounce, they love to be interacted with. There's a reason that they work, right? It's not witchcraft. The pivots are there all day. They're not following the price action. They're not changing. The pivots are there. They're not changing. No matter what happens, the pivots are going to stay there on the day. When the market opens, the pivots are based off of the price action from the previous day. And there's a reason these pivots work so well. And I use them. That's why, I mean, I use them. I'm preaching, right? I'm preaching. The VWAP, same thing. You know, we got back above the VWAP. The buyers tried to push this up there through this level. They got denied. And then guess what? The buyers start to get out. And it's a waterfall, sell, sell, sell all the way down there through that pivot. And then right there, the 15-minute setup today was a little tricky. Kind of trappy both ways with those numbers this morning. But you can see the 15-minute candle kind of had that breakout from the 25s up there to the 75s. Still about a 50-point move to the downside. And then again, once we broke through this 15-minute opening range, the bottom, we broke the 73s, it was a wash all the way to the downside. So I really do think even sometimes, you know, even if you get those fake outs up or down on the pivot on the 15-minute chart, the 15-minute opening range break, the 15-minute opening range break later on can be really good to look for a short or an opportunity if we break through that level before. So obviously we broke through this 15-minute range there to the upside and to the downside, but the move to the downside was obviously the move. So what's interesting is if you look right here, look at how nicely this kind of just broke through there. It turned it into resistance. There's a reason, right? We kind of turned that right into resistance. We started selling straight down, and that was a nice move from the 70s down there to the 20s. Another 50-point move. 50-point move from the top of that 15-minute range. 15-point move to the bottom of that 15-minute opening range there. So the moral of the story, very simply, is the market is moving up and down, and it is looking for these levels. It's creating liquidity. That's why I think the 15-minute chart really is a powerful chart. If you're going to be trading, you got to be looking at the 15-minute chart, right? I think the 15-minute chart, you just got to be looking at it. Even if you just get rid of all the indicators, just get rid of everything. All right, we're getting rid of everything. Oh, look. It's like the 15-minute chart. We moved down, started to move back up. We then moved down. We consolidated. We moved down again. You got to be looking at the 15-minute chart. I think the 15-minute chart really gives you a good understanding of where the price is heading based on the 15-minute candles. If the 15-minute candles are closing at the lows, well, then we're probably heading lower on the next candle. If the 15-minute candle is closing at the highs, well, then we're probably moving higher. So be looking at these 15-minute candles and understanding where those price action, where the candles are closing at. I'm always kind of looking at it like, okay, you know, what time is it? We got 10 minutes left here. We're at the low right now, but does that mean that we're going to get, look at that 1700 level, or that 14,700 level finally getting filled down there. We saw that 14,700 level days ago, or like 2 days ago, Monday. We saw that level sitting down there, and then today finally getting filled. Interesting. Very, very interesting, my friends. If you guys haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe button. Tune in 9:15 a.m. We'll be here live pretty much every single morning, Monday through Friday. I'll talk to you guys later on.